as y'all can see, I'm trying to get a little high tech, just a little bit, so I can start pretty much sharing some of this little old stuff that I be looking into. I be going back and get it. I mean, I stay looking at like videos of people who especially deal with history, and I'm doing this video because I'm trying to show you that you probably should be more into history than you are into like biblical times, because the biblical times start at a certain time. And just to show you, I so according to the biblical timeline, here you go with your creation, which pretty much it tells you it's going to be somewhere around by 2500 BC. But as we all know now, at least most of us know, that the world is much older than the Bible states. And so, um, according to this wiki page right here, I mean, now you do the math. You do the math. I know up here it's a middle Paleolithic time. That's 300,000, 300,000 and 50,000, between 300,000 and 50,000 BC. As you know, it's going down. It's going down. So it said, despite the claims of some researchers of burrow worship, belief in an afterlife, and other rituals, the archaeological evidence does not support the presence of religious practices by modern humans or Neanderthals during this period. Of course, of course, because as you can see over here, that I mean, even at the end of it, at 50,000 BC, there was no creation, and the Bible, as we know it, or as you know it, did not even exist at that time. Now I know all of it's crazy. They trying to put a timeline on everything that supposedly had happened, but the reason why I'm telling you is that you should really look at the historical part of it, rather than believing in some divine and biblical parties, because back then in those days the people didn't know about everything. They only knew about what was going on in their area. I mean, they definitely didn't have what we have, which is the internet, where we can, we can probably pull up what's going on in a whole nother state or a whole nother country and find out the activities and stuff like that. They knew nothing like that. Everything was pretty much being processed, excuse me, by word of mouth. And so, with this whole by word of mouth, time travel slow, or information travel extremely slow. And so, uh, let's see, with all of this going on, I mean, everything is supposedly starting in Egypt. But let me go back to my timeline of religion, from the middle Paleolithic all the way down. Let's go. I mean, you can see, because it was some things in here that I seen. Uh, Now, if you look right over here, I can't point and show you, but if you look to that side of the screen, you see where it say 13,000 to 8,000 BCE is noticeable burial activity. So at that time, people did. I mean, they probably didn't have a way of preserving or whatever, but they had started burying by then. Now, uh, now, if I scroll down a little bit more into the 5500 to the 4500 BCE, you got the proto Indo Europeans. Now, we all sit up. I mean, because based on the Bible, it'll have you questioning, where do white people come from? because everything based on the Bible states Egypt, and we want to believe that Egypt was strictly black and Africa was black, and that's all because of the whole out of Africa theory and stuff like that. But uh, if you do a little bit of more research, and you'll probably see that uh, Egypt up in that area, Egypt, Israel, and all that kind of stuff was probably more of a mixed area, meaning they had all kind of people. It wasn't just no black people and stuff like that. So it was really more of a mixed, probably more of a mixed continent or area or whatever. And so, I and let's I'm gonna read what it said about the Proto Indo Europeans emerged probably with Pontic Caspian steppe through their exact man. Euromate is debated. The Pa people developed a religion focused on sacrificial ideology, which would influence the religions and cultures throughout Eurasia. All right. And that's 5500 to 4500 BCE before the Bible is created now. All right. And so now here we get into the pro-Semitic, the whole Egypt Mesopotamian area, and that's starting in like 3750 BCE. And so, and one another thing I want to show y'all is the first maps. This is what they thought existed, and that was it. And that was it. This is all that people thought existed. There was nothing else outside of these areas right here. And anybody, Libya is pretty much Africa and stuff like that. But these are it's like the first pretty much like maps drawn. And this is a little bit more detailed. I mean, everything's surrounded off. If you look down over there at the bottom is Africa, and then you got Asia, and then more than likely up there at the top is Europe. This is all that they felt like or thought existed. This was the first world maps that were drawn. And now you get on down into the late 1500s or so, then you get the full like pretty much somewhat of a drawing of including other areas and stuff like that. That's a weird looking map, but it's trying to include other stuff. Now, as far as them, what they knew and stuff like that, in the year 2000 BCE, now they are pretty much confirming that the Mayan people were already here in America. Black people were already here in America. These were people that they didn't know about. So everything that you're reading about in the Bible happened in a specific area. And no matter what you read or what you research inside your Bible, you're not going to find anything outside of that area. Everything is talking about that area specifically, which has us messed up in the mind, believing in the whole out of Africa, believing in the whole Hebrew Israelite slave trade thing, the way that it's supposed to happen because what was written in the Bible. But if you really look at it, we can go over here to like I stated, in your Bible, by the time you get to Ezra's and all that kind of stuff, that the like I said, that the God no longer exists in that part of the Bible, and Darius or Cyrus had taken over. Persia had came through and pretty much conquered in Egypt. And as you can see, that I mean, most of the pharaohs were black, possibly all the way up into that time they had came into power. But here you go with Cambyses. Cambyses, he came through and he conquered. Bam, there you go. Now, I mean, even if you want to say that Egypt was all black at this point in time, which would be 525 or probably it's probably gonna be a little bit before that, but 525, uh, Egypt was no longer black, nor did they even rule. And after that, and the one another thing that black people we cry about, we say that I believe Cleopatra was black. Nah, she wasn't. Probably Nefertiti or somebody like that, but Cleopatra. I mean, you got like once you go down this line, it's really no more. I mean, like uh, it's pretty much Egypt, Africa had been conquered. And now here you go into your Persian, Greek, and Roman rule, and we know the Greeks, the Persians, and all of that kind of stuff. Now, if you look at these pictures of these people, I mean, you could see over here that these people, um, you know, I mean, you might have a time or two where Egypt regained, like the blacks regained, but at this time, it's like I said, it's probably a whole mixed up culture. But once you start looking at it, come on, Xerxes was not black. If you start looking, the whole atmosphere or the drawings that they had, the depictions changed. The depictions changed. And at times, I mean, like I said, you probably had some black people who became back rulers and stuff like that because the culture was more mixed now. It was definitely more mixed, or maybe those were what you want to call Arabic, Arabians, or something like that. And then here we go. If you look at Artaxerxes, in 343, Egypt came up under Persian rule for the second time. So, like I said, they probably came, at times, dang, they did take back over, but it was, it was nothing but fighting and stuff going on, and so the Persians take over again. All right, now here we go. Alexander the Great. As you can see, as you can see, that these people that you seeing now, come on, look at Bernice. Look at Bernice and Ptolemy's Cleo. Now, Cleopatra was the wife of Ptolemy's. Now, I mean, you could say she was black. Come on, I mean, like I said, that's mixed. You know what I mean? Or if we want to say she was black, this was definitely a mixed culture then because that was Ptolemy's wife, and this all it is. I mean, as you can see, is in all this in BC time. And then there was a Cleopatra the second. She was the wife of. I, I mean, I guess they having kids, and well, I mean, that was coming in that time. And that was definitely common in that time that people intermarried. Cleopatra the third, second wife of Ptolemy's the eighth. All right. And then all of that goes up into who's in charge even still today, all the way up into Roman culture. And so that's why I'm saying you got to get out of this belief that everything in the Bible that you reading is something that was actually going on, and it applies to the entire world when it actually doesn't. It only pretty much applied to that area that everybody was in, and then too, um, if you look around, there's like even in this, I mean, you're not gonna see nobody from the Bible. And this, I mean, like this was the time before that. I mean, like you can't even find Joseph being a governor in Egypt, nowhere that you search. And then if you start wikiing or Wikipedia the Exodus, they're gonna tell you it's a Hebrew myth, which I do believe. And I think like maybe the the Exodus was the splitting of Egypt. Now you got the north and the south or whatever, and the south was more probably still part of the rest up under Africa, and then you can take the north and push it over into Israel, over into what Iran, and into the Arabic nation, pretty much bottom line. But by then we know white people had already came in and started taking over. But back to my my pretty much religious timeline. And so let's go down some more. All right, and now in 2560 BCE, this is where you get the Great Pyramid of Giza, and then here comes the pyramid texts, composed in ancient Egypt. Now, take note of that. The pyramid text is already in existence before you got 2494, and between 2345. I mean, I don't know if you can see my arrow over there, but and let's go back over here. They just getting into, by then we just getting into creation and the Noah flood and all that kind of stuff, when the pyramid text is pretty much in existence. And so hold on, I seen some stuff. All right, and then here we have 1200 BCE, and you get the Greek Dark Ages. And when if you know anything about the Dark Ages is pretty much the time when nothing was going on, and then I think Hellenism came in and all that kind of stuff. But after that time, after the Dark Ages, where everything pretty much go quiet, and they probably doing more fighting than anything during that time. But in the 6th century, between the 6th and the 5th century BCE, you get right here the first 5 books of the Jewish Tanakh, the Torah of Hebrew, are probably compiled. So after everything else that's going on, now finally you starting to get your first books of the Bible. That's a long time. That's a long time, even away from creation. But as you can see, uh, that this is where they think that the first 5 books of the Old Testament was created. And if you're looking, Christianity is not a thing. Christianity is not a thing. A whole lot of stuff is not a thing yet in BC time. Actually, you Christianity didn't come to Rome. To Rome, pretty much took over, where you get your New Testament. And as I continue to scroll, look at this right here. Yoga even existed before before Christianity, but now we get into the Common Era. Now we get into the Common Era. By now, this is as you can see the time difference from 500 CE. Like I said, here you go. You can probably get another dark age between this time, and in between this time, this is when they say the Apocrypha was written, called, and the Apocrypha is supposedly called the Lost Time, which is about 400-500 years. And you see. And so now you get the life of Jesus of Nazareth, the central figure of Christianity, the death of John the Baptist. The Christian council was convened in Jerusalem. And so, I mean, they still got fighting and stuff going on, as you can see. In 70 AD was the siege of Jerusalem and destructions of the temple. Uh, I mean, so all this stuff is happening, and then 325 it says the first ecumenical council, the Council of Nicaea, was convened to attain to a consensus on doctrine through an assembly representing all Christendom. It established the original Nicene Creed and fixed the date of Easter. Say, it is also confirmed that the primacy of the sees of Rome, Alexandria, and Antioch, and granted the see of Jerusalem a position in honor. All right. So now, at this time, Rome is in charge. So it's really the Catholics, and this is where you're getting your whole Christianity from and stuff like that. And it says the oldest record of the complete biblical text, the Codex Sinaiticus, survives in a Greek translation called a Septuagint, dating to the 4th century CE. Now, let me go and see if I can go back up to the 4th century, 4th century, 4th century. Ain't really got nothing for the 4th century, but the one person who we all know about, Socrates. Think about that. So in 350 AD is the oldest record of complete biblical text of the Codex Sinaiticus survives in the Greek translation called Septuagint. So, man, I mean, I really don't understand this or whatever was going on right here, but the obviously that's from the when you can actually go back to, like they said, the 600s and stuff, like between 500 and 600 when they first started writing the Old Testament. And supposedly 70, because Septuagint means 70, but they say 72 elders from the Hebrew supposedly wrote the Septuagint, but as you can see, it's a Greek translation. So um, we know the Greeks wrote the Old Testament because you couldn't, besides the Codex Sinaiticus, you can't find no other original Greek writing, and that's why at the top they said uh, what don't let me say the wrong thing and nothing like that. But let's go back down. But like I said, the if you can see up here, the Egyptian pyramids, right here, the pyramid text had already existed before they started putting together the Bible. And here it is right here, first 5 books of the Jewish, and even they say Jewish right here tonight. Come on, and then the Hebrew. So which one were they? Were they Hebrews or Jews, or are they the same people? They the same people, and it's probably compiled in over look like shit, like 600 years or so, even more after the text from the Greeks. I mean, from the Egyptians were done. And then, all right, we passed the Council of Nicaea and all that kind of stuff. And then, again, here you go right here. Theodosius declared Nicene Christianity the state religion of the Roman Empire. So Christianity didn't really become a thing until I mean, come on, Jesus dead. Here we are, 300 and some years later, Christianity became a thing. And then for anybody who know, that the U.S. was conquered in the name of Christianity through Roman. For anybody who was not Christian, your lands could be pretty much captured in the name of Jesus or Christianity or whatever. So if you was here, if your family was from America, you was not Christian, because if you were, they would not have been able to take your land. All right. And then in 393 AD, a council of early Christian bishops listed and approved a biblical canon for the first time in the Synod of Hippo. So, not until 393 did they even get the books together, the supposed approved books. In 393, you do the math, and this is stuff that that people like base their entire lives off of. When all this stuff is researchable, for you to see that none of it existed outside of the area that it was in. Like I said, you can go over here and find this stuff. And then this was another one in 650. The verses of the Quran were compiled in the form of a book in the era of Uthman, the third caliph of Islam. Now, Islam didn't come to be until like 650. Now, that's almost up going towards 500, 600 years after Christianity started to even try and become a thing. Everything they were doing back then was in the name of this religion that their God was telling them that it was okay to do. All right. And then in 1054, you get the great schism between the Roman Catholic and the Eastern Orthodox churches was formalized. Now these jokers was going back and forth, fighting amongst each other, because actually they just couldn't agree on what should be pretty much spiritual, and what God supposedly had told Jesus and stuff like that. They couldn't agree. These jokers were fighting back and forth among each other, man. But yet and still, this is stuff that we take literal, and we really shouldn't. And as you can see, everybody know what the Crusades was. The Crusades was them killing people in the name of these religions and stuff. The Sixth Crusade won control of the largest area of the Holy Land for Christian rulers, more through diplomacy than through fighting. Like I said, they had been fighting forever, trying to get people to, like, either you gonna convert or you gonna die. Convert or die. Convert or die. And then here you go, 1378. Between 1378 and 1470, 1417, 1417, the Roman Catholic Church split during the Western Schism. All right, and then 1415, the death of Jan Hus, who is considered as the first reformer of the Western Christianity. Western Christianity is the Latin Church and the Protestantism, together with offshoots of these, such as independent Catholicism. Independent Catholicism, all of it came from Catholics, and uh, Restorationist churches, taken together. The large majority of the world's 2.4 billion Christians are Western Christians, which did not start in the United States. It started over there once they split. Like I said, they didn't know what was going on. It was the splitting of their lands over there, and you got your east and your west, and then the west. They pretty much came down over here, invaded, and all that kind of stuff. And we know why they were Latin because it was pretty much the Portuguese and the Portuguese and the English people. They came down and were the first to really start conquering. And then it's Pope Innocent, who Pope Innocent the eighth marked the beginning of the classic European witch hunts. And the witch hunts was they were scared of people for performing, trying to perform stuff and all that kind of stuff. All right, and then here we come. And into the whole from 1484, we already know about Columbus in 1492 or whatever, but in the 1600s, like I said, it was really the Spanish people who started doing all the conquering and stuff like that. If you look into it, that's why South America is mostly Spanish speaking. Portuguese and Spanish speaking, all the way up, and then England joined in with them, and then you get North America and with us English speaking people. Everybody who speak don't know their original tongue pretty much got the tongue they have today from being conquered. And look at this. Henry the Eighth separated the English church from Rome. Remember, all this stuff was together. Like I said, this is researchable stuff that you can go back and look up yourself, just the same way that I am. Made himself supreme head of the Church of England. All right, and then 1790 to 1840, and this is another thing that I be looking at, because I be looking into the whole slavery thing, man. Everything that you find out about the United States is going to start after the War of 1776. Everything you can find out is going to start after the War of 1776. In 1790 to 1840, the Second Great Awakening, a Protestant religious revival in the United States. The Second Great Awakening was a Protestant religious revival during the early 19th century in the United States. The movement began around 1790. The first census gained momentum by 1800. After 1820, membership rose rapidly among Baptist and Methodist congregations or whatever. I ain't gonna click on it to go off of here, but it pretty much started to spread. All right, and then the French Revolution. The Church of in 1830, the Church of Christ was founded by Joseph Smith on April the 6th. So everything, I mean, that's what I'm telling you. You should really get more into history, man, and find out that, I mean, like all this stuff, this everything is supposedly a holy war or whatever, and it's pretty much just the whole thing of being able to rule in succession over people. through them believing in this higher being and stuff like that. And so pretty much is another form of pretty much brainwashing you, making you believe in this and that. And then these people then pretty much just took over that area, and within that area is spread now all this these rules and regulations of the books are in fruition in your mind, and you're following all this stuff because you believe that something else is going to happen to you, when in fact, I mean, all it is uh people. Everything is is men. All of it is men. If I mean, like I said, if you go back, if I scroll back up in what was that, 300,000 years ago. We know the Bible's not that old. Even the Bible say replenish. If if you look at it, I mean, like they said, they wasn't even practicing. I mean, where was their God? Where was their belief in God and all that kind of stuff at? I mean, it tell you. I mean, like they can't even prove that these people even believed in anything. So, man, my purpose of showing you this is, I mean, like I said, the world maps. They for a long time everything was just over on the whole other continent of what they consider to be Africa, and where Asia and all that kind of stuff is. They did not know anything about the US until they started going on missions and stuff like that, looking for new land. And pretty much they was doing it. They did it to take over. And like I said, all of everything from Egypt, from like the year maybe 500, between 500 and 600 BC, there was no God, no actual God within this stuff. Within your Bible, there's no God. There's, supposedly they got the prophets and all that kind of stuff. But then too, nobody even really know when the books of the prophets was written. I mean, they can give you a timeline of Moses and all that kind of stuff. But supposedly, like I said, all that stuff happened within the exact same time frame. But like I said, you should really get out of the whole biblical believing, and get start looking more into history, because as Black people, all us believe that we came from Africa, when there's definitely a possibility that we were already in the Americas well before. They didn't know about us or nothing. They was fighting over there with them Africans and the Arabian people and all that kind of stuff. It, all that stuff was going on back then. And so I encourage everybody to start like trying to look a little deeper into history. Like I said, they can't tell you history about America, uh, but they, what they digging and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, they all the way back into 200 BC now, or probably even further back than that, with Lucille or something like that. And she was supposed. They don't know where she would find it. Was she find it in Africa, or was she found in South America? They don't know, but if you go back and you start looking into this stuff, you'll see that there were people in the Americas well before they even decided to bring African, or they even decided to come over themselves, because they didn't know nothing about the new land, and they can't tell you nothing about America, because everything that they was telling you about happened in the regions that they were in. So go ahead on, and like I said, start get out of the whole belief that everything is written right here in this Bible, when they didn't even know about the people in America. Do some more research. Until the next time, have a good one, good people. And I do not know how to exit out of this program.